And welcome everyone to this week's Business Bytes. I'm your host, Peter Stone. I'm joined once again by my business partner, Andrea Anderson. Welcome, Andrea. And we've got an incredibly talented expert panel today of Renee, Ben and Ronwin. So thanks so much, team, for joining us today. And we're super excited to get into how things have been going and what's been happening in the current environment. We're going to kick off with Renee. Renee, if you could just please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your business and how's things been going?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Renee and I'm from Cairns in far north Queensland. So I own and operate a social media agency called Social Butterfly Marketing. We look after social media for business, and that really encompasses training. So I'm a qualified trainer for the Diploma of Social Media Marketing, as well as part of an ASBAS program, which is one-on-one consults and group workshops for businesses, small businesses in Queensland, Western Australia and Northern Territory. We also do social media management, strategy, advertising, and my favourite is I love e-newsletters. So, and that's because I do get my biggest return on investment through e-newsletters. And actually the other one is lead generation ads on Facebook. So so that's sort of what I do. And I'm a member of the Social Media Marketing Institute of Australia. So yes, I love everything social media and digital. Yeah. So at the moment, to answer your next question, sorry if I go in and out. I know the Wi-Fi has been pretty bad up here in far north Queensland in the last week. Can you hear me, Peter? Yep, cool. Okay. So
I've just lost my audio.
Oh, so, no.
Andrew, can you jump in for a second? I'm just technical. Can you just jump in?
I didn't know, Andrew, if it was me being placed up in the sticks or if it was if it was the audio. So yeah, social butterfly marketing since COVID, it really has affected my business. So there's been a definite decline. And that's because we have a strong focus here on hospitality and tourism. It's very social. I do a lot of restaurants, dining. And so they were the first clients to go. However, it's interesting because I have seen an increase in the more professional services. And I have found that businesses are really reaching out and they're ready to start getting the foundations right. So it's now, over the last few months, they've been saying, hey, listen, I really want to have a look at my strategy, or I really need a social media audit. So that's where I found that business has picked up. So they're looking at really making sure that they've got the grassroots ready to go. It's all set up properly so that when business does pick up, they're ready. So yeah, that's how my business has changed.
Has your business always sort of been primarily targeting that hospitality and tourism sector? No?
I suppose it's not that I've targeted those guys. It's just that I've got a very strong presence in this region. And that was through a campaign that we ran in 2017 and 18, which was called the Cairns Social Butterfly. And that's where we did a competition and found somebody who was going to be, so basically they won a job with our agency for a year. And throughout that year, they became qualified with the Diploma of Social Media Marketing. And their job was, we were sponsored by businesses throughout the FNQ region, and they would pay a fee. And in exchange for that fee, the Social Butterfly would attend their business, restaurant or event or tourism activity. And they would cover it by posting live to social media at the time, talking on radio about the fact that they were going to go and experience this tour or whatever. And then they also took photos and did a written blog or article in a local publication, which was sponsored by News Corp. And I think through that campaign, it then started attracting businesses from within that industry. Yeah.
So just take me back a bit, because there was something you said right at the very beginning of that explanation. Yeah. So you ran a competition.
Yep.
For 12 months.
Yes.
For somebody's come and work in your business for 12 months.
Yep, that's right.
And then at the end of the 12 months, they would not only walk out with the experience,
yep,
but a qualification as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And so we identified the latest one, and it actually made national headlines. And that was the one that we won, the most innovative use of social media in Australasia. for that campaign. Yeah. And so it was definitely, and this is where I think a lot of businesses, I find, they think they want to do social media and they know that they need to be on social media, but they get frustrated when they don't see those initial results. And for me, like the way in my experience and my customers with working with my clients, the true results when it comes to that organic engagement really comes from those bigger creative campaigns, not just through posting to your social media day to day. Like that's great to keep that relationship there with the current followers, but to reach beyond that, you've got to kind of be creative and think big. And unfortunately, you do have to invest some money towards those sorts of things. So that was quite an expensive campaign to run, but it was good to have the support of the local businesses where they contributed to her, obviously, salary for the year, the paid advertising component, because we also did paid advertising for every business that we covered to boost their business into the news feeds. And yeah.
So tell me how you got into social media marketing. I think that's quite interesting. And how long have you been doing it for?
So 2013 I started. So I guess I'm still relatively, newish, I guess, to the industry. So what had happened was my husband was in real estate and I was on mat leave, and I started helping. We had a local magazine, so where local businesses would pay to be in this publication, which was hand delivered to over 3,000 residents in our suburb. And I then created a local group, and I said to these businesses, you need a Facebook page so that we can promote you through this group. They didn't know how to do it, so just for free, I started helping these guys get their business pages up and running, just so that we could promote them online. From there, I've sort of worked out that I really enjoyed it. I was actually quite good at it. I love thinking outside the square. And I just did a lot of free work for people. And then through that, I got experience. And a few months later, I officially started my business and I got my first big job. And it's sort of just grown gradually from there. So I went back to work part-time with government, and as my customers grew, I was working until 3 o'clock in the morning because I went to work through the day and worked on my business at night, and until my wages were enough that I could actually leave my job. So, and once I had enough income, I left my job, and now it's a full-time gig for me. Yeah. Thanks.
Peter, you're back, Pete.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and sorry, my headset decided to disconnect from the Zoom, but all back now. I'm curious. I missed some of that, so it was literally silence for me. But super interesting story. In the current environment with small business, have you touched on this? What are some of the things that we should be doing? Because in terms of the way things have changed, what are some social things or some steps for the listeners out there that they could be doing to kind of stay relevant in this changing environment?
I really think that one thing that I think is lacking through most of the businesses that I work with, and also given that where I'm from in Cairns, so a lot of my clients are from up here, we're very different to your bigger cities. So I do find that one of the biggest problems is that they don't have their marketing engine running properly. So they might do their social media and they might place a boost every now and again, but they don't actually have their ad account set up properly or their pixels set up. So they're not able to measure the traffic to their website. They're doing bits and pieces here and there, but not understanding how every little bit feeds into each other, and it's imperative to really, for their marketing to work. So I've found that that's how I've been able to help my clients. And it doesn't cost them a fortune to get, someone to go through everything with a fine tooth comb, make sure everything's connected, help them with a bit of a flow chart, because, a lot of the time they do still want to do it themselves. They just don't have that budget right now. So I sit down with them and I say, okay, this is how this fits into here. This is why this is important to measure. Then this happens, you need to do this. And they're like, oh, right. Oh, really? Should I be putting my blog in my e-newsletter and driving it back to my website? Yeah, absolutely. Just little things like that. And they're simple, but it's just going back to the basics. And I find that's really what's helping them the most.
Yeah, that's fantastic and great advice out there for the listeners out there who can get so caught up in just trying to get the website built that we can kind of forget that it's part of an overall strategy, in a sense. And then so one of the things that you're finding great success with is coming in and lining up all everything so it's sort of a seamless experience for the user.
That's right. And even one of the biggest things is when we do with our clients a monthly audit. So every single month, we will go through every single digital platform that we take care of for our client. And we will go through every little tiny part of that platform. So for example, a lot of businesses right now will be on their Facebook, their area code will on their settings for their business will be in South Samoa, because what Facebook did an update and it kicked everybody's phone area codes out. So their phone number is in South Samoa, not actually in Australia. So just things like that. Yeah, most people's ad accounts will probably be in Perth or LA time zone because, again, Facebook did an update. So the time zones are out of whack. So then you've got to, in order to create an ad account that's actually in the correct time zone now, you've got to disable that one and create a new one. But then you run into the trouble of, well, if you're currently running ads on the old one, do you want to decide those to stop running and just rip that Band-Aid off and start a new ad account so all of the foundations are right? Or do you want to keep running that? Because then you'll have to attach a new pixel. So they're the sorts of things that I'm finding are frustrating. Well, I'm talking about Facebook specifically here, but all of the platforms do the same thing. But Facebook, I find, is the worst culprit for that.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting, because I'm not sure, but most of, well, Andrew's nodding and I'm sitting there thinking, like, there's a thought that once you sort of set up with your ad campaign, it just kind of ticks over. But what you're saying is there's a whole nother level where you really need to stay on top of it, because I guess you are spending your money. And if these things aren't right, then you're just not seeing the value, but you're missing out on sort of extra value.
Yeah, that's right. If your pixel's not working properly, then you're missing out on, being able to create a custom audience group based on the traffic that's been visiting your website. So a lot of people don't then go to the next step and create an audience based on the traffic to your website for your Facebook ads. Yeah.
So can you just explain for the listeners out there how that Facebook pixel works and how you can use it to, generate some more business?
Yeah, sure. So a Facebook pixel is a piece of code that you create within Facebook, and it is actually, once you understand how it all fits in with everything else, it's very easy to do. And you create the code, and that piece of code will be installed into your website. So if you've got a custom website, I would definitely recommend getting your web developer to install that. But if you've got a partner website such as WordPress or Wix, which is a partner of Facebook, it's follow the bouncing ball. They'll show you how to install that. And so once that code is installed, you can start seeing the sort of activity that you're having on your website. So it can be as simple as traffic to my website, which could be one thing, who's been viewing a page such as whatever URL, and it will tell you how much traffic has ended up on each URL. Or you could even go down to tracking events. So an event isn't like a party, it's an event could be somebody's filled out a lead generation form on your website, or abandoned the cart, or they've gone through, put in their credit card details but not paid. And so it's a good way to be able to sort of identify the results from your actual Facebook marketing. What's working, what's not working, where are people dropping off, how do I get them to make that next step? Is it something that I've done? Are my ads maybe not really taking them to the exact place that they need to be? Are they getting lost between where I've directed them to making that purchase? And also, I love it because I love analytics. So I'm a bit of a nerd. I'm creative, but I love data as well. It's very confusing. But I love watching when I do an e-newsletter. My traffic to my Facebook absolutely goes through the roof. So I know that a lot of people are going from my e-newsletter, then to my Facebook, then to my website. So I know that they're doing a couple of steps of, checking my credibility or, a product. So the last e-newsletter I sent out was for the COVID $10,000 grant. That grant that they recently did and is closed within a few days. Well, we did up packages to suit the different industries, so that because they had a few days to get these grants in. So we did a travel and tourism package. We did a tradie package so that they could just say, yep, can you send me a quote for this package? Send it out in an email. We had something like 1.7 thousand results tracked from our Facebook to our website, that specific page, within a couple of days. So we know that that worked. So that's where I'll be ready now for the next grant, and I'll be doing that, ready to go, so that I can take my customers to the website and hopefully make some sales.
It's no wonder that you're successful at what you do, because it's hard to find that mix of someone that's creative on one side but also likes the technical side on the other.
Yeah.
Is that something you've developed, or is that just something that you're naturally gifted at?
I just love big ideas. So I've got clients who say they get anxious when I talk to them about ideas, because they're just like, oh, I just want to do an e-newsletter. I'm talking about, but if we do this and we do this, then, I love campaigns and creative things because I see the results through those things. I've always been creative, yeah, but I love data as well. I don't know why. I just like to see graphs and I like to understand why something's happening. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the clients must love you in a fact, because you can then show them what each month you come and say, well, look, this is the campaign, these are the results that we're getting, and this is the traffic that it's generating.
Yeah. And I love, so one of my favorite features in the analytics side of things, and Facebook has the best analytics. I really love their data that they provide. So they've got really great reports that they give you, but then you can also extract the raw data, and you can actually take the data that's important to you and create your own graphs and reports. And the thing I like about that is that you can then compare year on year. So you're comparing January 2019 to January 2020. Whereas if you're just using the reports available within Facebook that they give you as an overview, you can only see the last 28 days of data, which to me is sort of pointless, because it doesn't show us how you're not comparing apples with apples. But so one of my favorite things that you can't actually extract raw data for is the pages to watch within Facebook. Has anyone looked at that, spent time in there? So if you go in your Facebook analytics, down the bottom, you'll see pages to watch. And so I use that as a way to follow people who inspire me. So in my industry, who I think are doing really well online. And I also like to watch my competitors, and it will show me what their engagement rate is, which for me, engagement is the most important metric to measure. So reaching people is fantastic, but if they're not engaging with my content, then I'm doing something wrong. They're not interested in what I've got to say. And so when I see someone who inspires me, or someone who is a competitor, their engagement spike compared to mine, I will click on you can click on their business, and it will show you what their top performing post was for the week. So if you see a spike, you can sort of see, oh, okay, well, this is obviously what's working for people in other businesses in my industry. How can I learn from that and do something similar or better? Or, so it sort of helps me figure out my way forward. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So you can kind of deconstruct what the competition or the people that inspire you are doing, and recreate that in your own way throughout your business. In terms of engagement, can you explain to the listeners who may sort of understand what social media is, but what's the benefit of the metric of engagement as opposed to just the other things?
Yeah, so you've got reach, so how many people your content ends up in their newsfeed. Then you've got impressions, so how many people see your post. So I might reach everyone here with my post, but some of you I'll reach 2 or 3 or 4 times. So that means I've impressed those people that many times. And then engagement is when someone's commented, liked, shared, or clicked on a post. So to me, that's them. It's great to reach people, but doesn't necessarily mean they've actually noticed my content. And so for me, engagement's so important, because when I'm getting engagement, Facebook's also able to read that and they're able to go, oh, these people are interested in the content from this business. I'm going to keep delivering my content to these people, because they're about trying to deliver the best content to the people who it matters to. And they will also then try and match my content to those people's profiles and other people like those people. So the more engagement I get, the more I get delivered. And so that to me is the most important, because if I can get engagement organically, I have to spend less money to get into people's news feeds. And the average engagement rate on Facebook's quite low. It's only like 3.6%. So I try and set myself a bench, and that's across all industries. So obviously some industries will have higher, some will have lower engagement rate as a standard, but I'll set myself a benchmark of, say, a 4% engagement rate. And I will regularly go through my posts and I'll say, that was terrible, I'm not doing a post like that again. This engagement rate was 12%, great, I'll repeat that, but not that exact post, but content like that, because that is what my audience are interested in. And it's always just about it's about the real stuff. It's about either entertaining or informative. But as soon as I do a direct sell, I lose people. So that's why I say anything that's a direct sell, I really try to keep that to a minimum, and I try to do it through my ads manager so that that content's not on my newsfeed. Otherwise, my newsfeed looks like it's unengaged. So I just keep my newsfeed. And sometimes it's like, why are you posting that on your business page? Nothing too personal, but things like I might go and visit a local business and get my eyebrows done. So I might do a post about that. They're not necessarily paying me for that, but I get to actually connect to their audience plus my audience. It gets my engagement up, and I'm only really doing it for that engagement, so I'm not having to spend so much money with my ads. Yeah,
there's some absolute gold today, isn't there, Andrea, already? So Renee, if the listeners are out there and they're thinking, gosh, I'd love Renee to help me out doing this for me, how would someone connect with you?
Yeah, you're welcome to message me on Facebook. So Social Butterfly Marketing on Facebook, and I'm a big green speech bubble butterfly. Otherwise, my website, www.socialbutterflymarketing.com.au, or renee@socialbutterflymarketing.com.au.
And I'll get those links in the descriptions as well. Like, if you could only pick one social media platform to work with, because look, some of the listeners out there, they're probably they want to do social, but they may not. They may have a Twitter account, they may have quite a few, but they may not be totally using them all or to their best ability. In your opinion, is there one that you should be focusing on to get right before you worry about the others, or how do you go about the whole social as a small business?
Yeah, I definitely recommend starting with 2 platforms initially. And one is very minimal effort, and that's Google My Business. So if you're a local business, especially a local business, get that set up and make it immaculate, and make sure you are using it to its full potential, responding to every single review, making sure that your hours of operation are consistent across all of your digital platforms, making sure that you've got all of your services in there. So, and actually posting and creating events in there at least once a week. And so that's very minimal effort there once it is set up properly and you're doing your monthly audit. You're just posting once a week, really. And then I do say Facebook, because the reason I say Facebook is you've got over, 2.6 billion monthly active users now a month on Facebook. And the demographic, that's monthly active as well. So that's not whole users. Right. And the demographic is so broad. So you've got your 13-year-olds up to your grandparents. So, and you can use articles, videos, photos, live, all of that sort of stuff. So I feel like it's a really great overall platform. And then once you've got your strategy working out well, once you've got your head across that and you're managing it and you're able to actually keep on top of your community engagement as well, then look at other platforms such as, going into Twitter or TikTok or Snapchat. But I think those 2 are your foundations that you start with. But if you do too many from the beginning, you're just going to drop the ball.
Yeah, that's some fantastic advice. So
that's my thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Renee, for now. Absolute gold for kicking off. And we'll open things up to a group discussion. So jump in if there's something to add. But for right now, thank you so much for sharing all things social media. Hey, Ben, we're going to jump across to you, Ben, who's in sunny Sydney, I believe, with that glorious background. Hey, welcome, Ben. Can you please just introduce yourself, explain a little bit about your background and your business, please?
Yeah, for sure. Firstly, thanks for having me, and Renee, that was fantastic. I learned a lot there as well, so I'm pretty happy to be here. My name's Ben. My business is Indigenous Finance and Business, stands for IFAB, And yeah, it's people probably go, well, that's interesting. We've never heard of it. So we've only really been around since late last year, and that's when we had our inaugural conference. And the idea behind it is, we're not necessarily pushing products or services, but what we're trying to really do is draw that human capital element together. All the elements that make great business, all the leaders, Indigenous and non-Indigenous leaders that are running fantastic businesses out there, like many people here, bringing that together and really pulling that into to solve some issues that we have in community and broadly, and really creating that Indigenous economy. So that's part of what we do, and also just helping people understand the power of business and finance and where to sort of get started and who to link into. So that's really what we're about. So obviously having the bushfires and COVID, to impact. We were upcoming. We had our conference. We had some really great content. We're going to start going live with stuff online, and then boom, sort of just the year started off turbulent, and then COVID, and everyone was getting swamped. I think just with emails left, right, and centre. So that really shook things up for us in regards to how do we, get content out, but also more importantly, how are we ensuring people don't feel overwhelmed. So that definitely hit us in terms of we don't want to overpost, and I think to Renee's points, thinking about the impressions and the comment engagement, getting quite particular on what we're putting out there and how we're actually helping people. So that was a huge change from just putting out mass content, actually scaling it back and going, what meaning are we creating for people?
Yeah, it's certainly been a different time, hasn't it? So you've kicked off. What was the thinking behind the thinking that set everything in motion later last year that got everything up? Can you tell us a little bit about the backstory and how everything came to fruition?
Yeah, for sure. So at the moment, I'm still fully employed in financial services, chartered accountant by trade. And for me, coming through university and high school, you just, you don't see much Indigenous business. Like business is not something that people think, can really assist them. It's, what can assist community is more of our social work, our lawyers, and there's a misconception that business is not a good thing. Amongst the young ones. So when I got into actual corporate and professional, and you look around and you see there's amazing thought leaders and businesses actually everywhere. And so, but it's just not that apparent. So how do we actually bring that all together? And I thought we've got to do something where we're looking, across sectors, where we're actually looking, across competition. So not, being, oh, that's a competitor, I can't bring him in. Actually, how can we work with them and have them make some real change on some social issues? So that was the thinking behind it. Get the different sectors talking, corporate, public, and sort of trying to improve that reach. So that's really.
So in terms of your organisation, the Indigenous Finance and Business Group, how will you know? Let's say 10 years from now, when you look back, what are the sorts of things that you'd like to have in place to know that it's been a successful journey?
That's a great question. I think for me to really, have finance and business as something that's comfortable in community. I think if we look down 10 years and we see that it's comfortable, I also think more of an Indigenous economy, really when it comes to sort of policy setting, that businesses are banding together, and it's not just segregated, it's actually a united voice across the sectors that are coming together and saying, this is how we should be approaching policy design, or this is how, you guys should be doing that. And it's really the businesses that are driving that. So I think, all the leaders have done a great point now to get their businesses to where they are, but how do we actually band together on certain issues and drive the policy forward? So I think, really seeing that voice in policy creation in 10 years will be massive.
Yeah. And so in the short term, what's, given the current environment, you mentioned that you're cognizant about not overwhelming, I guess, the your members? Are they members, or is it the community? How do you actually engage, and how does the whole sort of process work?
It's a great question. So yeah, so we have a member base. You know, those people that really want to stay connected with our content and get a bit more granular and sort of come to conferences. We have a member base for that. But we're also sort of using our channels like Instagram just to be places for thought, you know, provoking, and sort of bringing a different lens. So at the moment, we're sort of running, you know, two sort of strategies to see how that works, because we appreciate not everyone necessarily wants to be maybe a part of the movement straight away or part of it, but they're interested and they want to sort of keep seeing some of the content, and that might lead them to some ideas. So we've sort of got that platform where people can look, can make comments, or just reach out to us and say, hey, I'd like to start in business. Do you know where I should start? And we can just go, yeah, sure, there's a resource over here, or have you seen this? So yeah, it's sort of having that two strategy so that we can get people that want to be really involved and those that aren't sure just yet.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So you've got your community of people that are already on board. This is a great idea. Let's help get the message out there, and let's help encourage, I guess, Indigenous Australians to I guess embrace business, and they're already embracing it. And then there's that wider community where you're kind of saying, hey, business isn't such a bad idea. Have you considered this? And then is your role partly an introduction agency where it's like, well, I want to do this, or have you spoken to this person, or here's a mentor over here, or is that the way it's playing out at the moment? Or
yeah, that's how it's playing out at the moment. And you know, sort of think of it, you know, sort of like a type of like a LinkedIn, but you know, where they can come to us without being on a LinkedIn, and we can sort of point them to areas that may be of assistance. And I think that's, you know, we get to where we are because of other people. I don't think anyone's ever got to success without help. So, you know, we that's the core of what we're doing. So just trying to link people in via that means. And we say, look, it might not be correct. They might reach out to that person and go, hey, actually, that didn't work. And we go, okay, bring it back, and let's see if we can find someone else.
Yeah, and so I guess business. So the genesis was the fact that you saw an opportunity to boost business. Is it business acumen, or is it just the business flavor, or is it just a whole range of top-down issues when it comes to business?
There's a few top-down issues. I think one of the biggest ones probably what business can actually do for community, and not just for yourself, but how do you help drive community issues? How can you help the community out of certain areas? So that's probably one of the biggest ones that, you know, we'd like to get out there and actually show those examples. Even some communities on country that you know, a great example I have is out of Darwin, where you've got a community providing oysters to local restaurants, you know, same day. And they've scaled that by partnering with, you know, a non-Indigenous accounting agency. So it's just bringing stories like that to fruition and saying things are possible. And then it's also just actually, you know, being a helping hand for people that don't know necessarily where to start and might not, you know, feel comfortable reaching out to an established organization per se. So we're just trying to be an organic, you know, grassroots, off the ground type of thing. And you know, we have no affiliation like with a government, or, you know, we're for the members. So whatever the members say is what we drive to do. So we're just trying to, you know, keep that organic element running through from day one. So
yeah, it's a fantastic initiative, and thanks for sharing so far. If someone's listening and they want to get involved, or they know someone that's been talking about business and might want to get involved, how can they connect with your organization?
Yeah, so if you hit us up at www.ifab.org.au, you'll go through and you'll see there's actually two sections. You can sign up to be a member, so it's Indigenous and non-Indigenous, or you can be a donator of knowledge. So we've got this concept, instead of donating funds, how about donating some knowledge, spending some time providing wisdom. That's it.
Well, that's fantastic. Can we touch on that? Can you explain how donating wisdom works? Because that's a great concept.
Well, yeah, I think we're always quick to, think that, let's just chuck some money at it and let's go from there. But it's things like this, just sitting in this type of call and hearing some of the wisdom, for example, from Renee on marketing and funnels and how you could drive better engagement. I mean, that there actually, how do you monetize? How do you actually catch that value and say that could be worth infinite? So yeah, it's really about actually just sitting down, sharing some of what you've learned in your experience, and you're able to help someone 10x something that might have taken you years. They could probably do it in days. I think that's really powerful.
So in a sense, you're trying to set up a kind of an organic mentoring program. So if someone puts their hand up and says, I want to help share my knowledge to help, how does that actually work? Is there a process that goes through, or do they just become one of the resource people that you can direct people to bounce ideas from?
Yeah, effectively at the moment, it's just becoming one of the resources. When we're thinking of doing a forum such as this or tying into these type of things, again, it's sort of having that pool of people that we can sort of guide to or just get comments or ideas from. So and it's organic. It's not structured. We appreciate everyone's busy and sometimes they've only got time to just impart some clips or some bytes. And so that's really what that aims to do there.
And I'm curious, so like obviously things have changed, as we're all aware. How do you see the next sort of until Christmas playing out for you? Like, has that changed your plans, or what's in the pipeline?
Yeah, so we were going to be having another conference in November because it's quite obviously powerful to be in person and meeting people and to take in content. So that sort of pushed our plans back to next year for that. But I think what we're thinking more of doing now is just really going back out to the members, really listening to exactly what they're struggling with right now and trying to deliver tailored content to them. Because at the end of the day, they're the most important thing for us. So we need to be listening just as much as we're trying to put it out. And sometimes it's okay to actually reach out. I've found that it's okay to say, hey, what would you like? Because, I want to be of best service to you. I'm here to service you. And, I don't need to have it all planned together. And I've noticed that with my social media stuff as well. Sort of like Renee touched on it, you live and learn from some of the posts you make. So it's okay to make mistakes on the post or to get insights. And so, yeah, we're just being quite honest now, just reaching out and saying, hey, how can we service you? And delivering content like that rather than just doing something.
And look, thanks so much. It's a great initiative, and everyone's nodding here and wishing you all the best of success. Is there something that surprised you so far in this journey? Like, there's some stories? You touched on one which was really interesting with the fresh oysters to restaurant, per day. Has there been something that has been like a good news story, or something that's surprised you that you didn't realize could happen or has happened since starting this journey?
Yeah, I think just for example, the power of the one-day conference. So some of our non-Indigenous counterparts, came to that conference thinking about Indigenous business more as a supply side, so like your procurement policy, and they're thinking, how are we going to partner with Indigenous business to procure more? But then when they sort of left the conference, it was actually more about what Indigenous wisdom and business could probably do for the sector overall, for their business. So the way that we engage with our customers, or the way that we engage with others, and sometimes we lose sight of that when we start making profits and it's all about margin. And so it was really interesting to see some of those insights and understandings that our counterparts took away from that conference. So I think, driving a bit more of that for some of the corporate areas to see. I also think some of those that didn't realize potentially some partnerships they could do. So we had a lady that's working in juvenile justice and looking to maybe do an accounting bookkeeper program for those that are coming out. And she was able to sort of get that idea sort of built up with the business case, and now is looking to sort of partner with some businesses to deliver that. And she was able to sort of develop that idea further at our conference. So again, just from having conversations with people, being able to drive further development of business ideas.
Yeah, it's look, it's fantastic to hear such success stories, and I get a sense coming together. The conference thing is super important. Obviously, that's a bit tricky now, but yeah, we'll obviously keep us in touch. We'll keep our members engaged, and we'll let we're happy to promote whatever you guys are up to through our databases as well. Andrew's nodding in the background there. So yeah, keep up the great work. Thanks so much, Ben, for sharing, and we'll open things up in just a moment.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
And Ronwin, welcome. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background in business, please?
Sure. So my business is called Business in Training, and we do work with startups predominantly. We are branching out into new things, but it always has been startups because it's been a very early mission. I worked in a lot of different business roles early on, but straight out of uni, my first real full-time job was working in state government in the small business units, and it just was such a big awakening. It was like, if we don't have businesses, we don't have employment. Like businesses are the backbone of community, yet it seemed like the advice we were giving people was, oh no, there's not really any money for startups. There's not really a lot of guidance for startups. There's not very many programs for startups. We've got a few things here and there. And this just culture in Australia that was just like sink or swim for startups. And even now working with startups, and I'm sure you guys, work in the same space, people throw like failure statistics at you all the time. And I'm just like, anyway, but so it's been a mission really since that time. And that was like, 15 or more years ago.
Yeah.
Saying that, but yeah. And so over the last few years, I've really got it going, and it's been it is really a training based approach, which is like, if you want to start a business, don't worry about what people say about starting a business or what the industry is doing, what the economy is doing. That's all statistics. It's not your own probability of how your business is going to go and what you're going to do with it. So you just got to forge ahead. And if you've got a great idea, get it going. If you think you've got something to offer, get it going. If you've got some way to bring people together or start something, just get it going. And so it's definitely been a labor of love. I probably do more free work than paid work. And I think that's notorious for the startup space. And a few years ago, I did say, oh, maybe I'll do an online program, because online is a very economic way to deliver knowledge. Like, you just set it up, let it go into the wild and see who wants to uptake it. But I've always been I've been a trainer for many years, and I still teach advanced business studies as, for other providers and that. And the thing that is really notable is that you can have a really good online program, but people never learn as much as they do in a live setting. Like a live setting, it's like a collective subconscious that comes together, and they share experience, and they learn and they teach at the same time. There's just so much value in a live training. So I've always done that approach. And so I started drafting like an online program, and I put it aside. And then this year I was like, right, we've got a whole new program for live training, and we're got to step it up. We're going to do some really big like leadership talent projects and things like that. And then March happened, and I don't need to say what happened in March, but March, we'll just say March.
Yeah.
And my live program just went poof. So like most businesses, that rely on people contact, suddenly I had this challenge of, well, how do I pivot? And lucky for me, it's a very tried and tested method of just throwing stuff online and doing it via a web conferencing program and having the sessions online. And I admit it probably would have been the plan for some of the regular programs, but not the really big, like how do you get people to spend several $1,000s on a huge, like days, weeks long program to do leadership when you don't have any contact with other people, and you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So actually most of my time over the last 3 months has been advisory work. It just sort of organically happened that the time I would have spent changing everything to an online platform, I've just spent like engaged with other organizations and other businesses going, what do I do? So it's been a really interesting time. It's kind of pushed my knowledge a bit, as I'm sure it has with everybody, of, okay, that's a new challenge. Let's think about that one. But yeah, so it really is a startup space, although it is evolving, that's for sure.
And I guess with such solid, business background in startups, I guess you were sort of well prepared on some level to be able to restart up your business, because you kind of know, like, when things change, like, I guess you're pretty adept at being able to do that, even though it is confronting when it first sort of appears.
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right. I think the thing about startups is that you have to learn to problem solve and strategize. Like, unlike, big business does it, and medium business does it because they learn to do it. It's part of their nature, their makeup. But I think startups and, like when you've got $500 budget and you have to launch a business, like that takes some clever thinking, you know what I mean? Like it's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You got to work with the resources you got and come up with the most crazy ideas you can to have the most impact. And likewise, like some businesses I work with, they've got disabilities or whatever. And it's like, well, how do I do a fashion line when I barely can leave the house? It's like, well, there's lots of different challenges that people face and of all kinds of things. So yeah, absolutely. Working with startups definitely makes you think outside the box a lot. And I really like listening to Renee's talk as well about, how your approach on stuff. But certainly it also, I guess it shows you some gives you some grounding in that there's no single way to approach something. And that's really what it comes down to. And when you come into these times where we talk about, saving our businesses and pivoting and all that kind of stuff, but it comes down to resilience. Like suddenly, we've got big, huge business communities that have been facing fire and flood and all this for years. And suddenly we're in the metro regions facing COVID, where we've got big, broad scale shutdowns and changes. And suddenly it's like, oh my God, what do we do? And I think we could learn quite a few things from other communities that have had this, they've gone through this 2-3 times where they've had complete shutdown and had to, revisit, start again, change the way they do things. Like, yeah.
So if I had a business idea and I wanted to come to you, and let's say I had a bit more of a budget than $500, and I've got that one thing that's going to revolutionize whatever industry or whatever. What can you tell the listeners? Because there's probably lots of listeners out there that may be employed, that want to start something on the side, maybe like a side hustle that they want to build up. I mean, Renee did that in a sense because she was good at it and built that up. So what are the steps that you take someone through when they're starting up a business? Can you just explain to the listeners out there what things they should be aware of?
Yeah, so look, there's probably some basic tests to do on yourself before you get started. The first thing is that what you dream your business to be isn't necessarily the first stage that you release it in. So if you think about, like, we have this great Australian dream to own a house and have a dream house, and this is what it's going to have. It's like, well, that's not your first house though, is it? That's the house you head towards. So business is exactly the same. So I say when you're getting started, the first thing is to know your current situation, your current limitations, your current resource availability. And resources isn't just money. It could be skills and time and other people you can collaborate with and things like that. But you kind of need to collate that all together and go, okay, for the business I want to head towards, or what I want to do, what is the first thing I can do? What can I do right now? And I'm very cautious in using that word limitations, because I really think we're very limitless in what we can do, really, every individual. And that's a key thing to remember when you're getting started, is that just because it feels like an uphill battle when you start, doesn't mean it'll always be like that. Doesn't mean that there's not a way through, doesn't mean you can't get there. But I guess what I'm saying is, you know, you've got to match what you're going to do with who you are and what you have. So, for example, I used to go to these trade shows where giving business advice, and I'd have people coming up and saying, I want to start a cafe. And I don't suppose we'd have that this week, but, you know, want to start a cafe.
Yeah.
And I say to them, you know, like if you're going to own a cafe and you're going to be working in your cafe, you do understand that that's like your prime social time. Like it's meal times. That's when you're going to be working. And then most people, once they think about it, they're like, actually, I like the idea of a cafe because I like going to cafes. And like, that's your first challenge, is that you're going to start working in a business where you're never going to go to a cafe ever again, except your own, like, you know, and it's these kinds of fits, like the matchups that you got to work with, that, you know, whatever you like to do, whatever you enjoy doing, that's great. As long as monetizing it and making it commercial and making money from it is actually still going to work well with who you are and how you like to live your life and what do you want to do with it, you know?
That's excellent advice out there for anyone who's thinking about, you know, starting a business. You're essentially saying, if I can paraphrase, it's the law of vehicle being, it needs to be the right business vehicle that doesn't just, it's not just, it has to tick all the boxes, not just, oh, wouldn't it be great to own a cafe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, because there's a lot of times people start a business thinking, won't this be wonderful? And then the dream turns from a dream into a bit of a nightmare. How do you, like, when you're working with people, how do you help them through that? Or does that not happen when they're working with you, because you kind of help them not do that in the first place?
Yeah. So I think it's a double question there. So the question is, like, if you have someone who's prepared to do it, how do you get them into it and make them work for it? Well, I think, you know, Renee and Ben's story shows that you can do an awful lot in your spare time. You know, and I don't know if I caught that right, Renee, but you were on mat leave when you started this, which means 3 o'clock in the morning with a baby as well. I kind of heard that underlying 3 babies. Yes. Okay. So yeah. So, you know, I love this quote that I heard once, which is, there are 24 usable hours in every day. And then there was another great speech came out last year from Arnold Schwarzenegger going, you only need 6 hours sleep. Like anything more than that, you're wasting your time. And I think that's different for everybody. So I think firstly, you have to know that just because somebody is an amazing mom and an amazing business owner and they're super organized and they got all their crap together, that doesn't mean that's everybody. And it's okay if you're not the most organized person, or you don't, you know, like if you can't model that kind of wonderful, you know, super mom kind of thing, like, or whatever your circumstances are. You know, people have their own challenges, and everybody has challenges, and it's personal to you what your challenges are. So some people might have really big challenges where they're caring for someone else in their family, and that's their full-time job. Or you have other people who work, you know, they're slugging away for someone else at 60 hours a week, and they're trying desperately to make a change in their life so that they can get out of that. But then they have those financial responsibilities with all that. So I think bite-sized pieces, start small, start with, you know, I always call it the flagship product. So you start with one flagship product or service that you really look around, and not just what you think people will like, that's an assumption, what you know people will get their wallet out and pay for want of a better phrase. And there's nothing callous about that. If you want to run a business, it's about making money, because without the money, you can't grow it. You can't help your target audience. You can't help your community. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of huge communal greater benefits that come from having a ongoing concern that makes money. It's not just your own personal gain. It's everyone in your family. It's those around you. You can start to employ people. You can start to collaborate with other businesses. You can get a message out about whatever great, amazing thing you're offering to the world. Like there's so many great things that come from just making sure you make money on whatever you do. And I obviously just said at the beginning that I'm a terrible example of that, because I keep giving away things for free, giving away time for free. And you don't want to go to my Facebook. Like Renee went to my Facebook, she'd just be like, oh my God, like So, you know, I think it's just when you get started, break free of the illusion that business people are all successful and it's all wonderful. And just because they look like they've got it all together doesn't mean they do have it all together. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to trip over yourself. It's okay to have weeks where you're like, you know what, I just want to watch Star Wars for like 8 hours straight and not have to face anything today. like you have those days. And once you tear down that illusion of like thinking that people have it all together and people are perfect and their businesses are wonderful, you can kind of peek behind the curtain and go, you know what, this is hard. We're not perfect. We do what we can. We just focus on one thing at a time and take the next best step we have. And people pressure you to like plan 5 years ahead and do this and do that. It's like, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to do anything that people tell you you're supposed to do. You just do whatever is right for you in your situation with your flagship product or service that you're trying to get going, and you build on that. And once you've built on that, then you can start to transition. So Renee's story was a great story, and I'm sure Ben's will follow suit, where it's like, yes, working full time, building something on the side. And also the other thing is not to assume you have to do it by yourself. Like, there's lots of great services, assistants, incubators, programs, even just finding another person like yourself that has a complementary skill set or a complementary business where you can kind of partner up. You don't have to even partner up legally, just as a kind of an MOU of, okay, I understand this is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. We're going to help do each other. And a perfect example of that is like, people hate selling their own stuff. Hands down. I don't meet one person that's like, yes, I love sales. I love selling this baby I've been working on for the last 2 years, and I finally got it perfect. And I want to go out there and, you know, tell people to pay money for it. Like, it's a very self-conscious thing to do. So a great way to partner with another business is like, you sell my stuff, I'll sell your stuff, and you can hit the phones all day doing that, promoting someone else's business. Because just like when we're an employee, you know, we've got that instant level of faith and trust that we can just, you know, go and sell or promote or something for someone else. But as soon as it's our own, it's like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, there's some excellent advice there for all the listeners out there, and everyone's nodding in agreement. And I was reading something recently where it was saying, well, nothing happens until the sale is made. And that's the whole reason we're in business. Yet you're right. There's something that can often hold us back in doing that. So partnering up is a great way. And you touched on a lot of other great resources for startups as well, with incubators and things like that. Before we go any further, if someone's listening and they're thinking, you know what, I wouldn't mind starting something up, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, we have a website like everybody else. It's www.businessintraining.com.au. All our contact details are on there. I am always open for a chat. So anybody who knows me knows that you can just give me a call and I will talk to you about anything you'd like to chat about. And if it's just you've been stressing about an idea for a week and you want to figure out if there's some grounds to it, or if you're stuck in your business and you're not really sure what the next step is, it doesn't really matter. So email, phone, whatever.
Well, that's fantastic. And while you were talking, you're saying how like some people, they look on the outside that they've got everything together, but on the inside, you know, may not necessarily be the case.
Ducks on a pond.
Yeah. And I was reading recently, I'm doing some training with a guy who's written 196 books, 27 bestsellers, and I'm on his mailing list, and he sent me a note saying how he struggles with procrastination.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, this is going to be it's just a tagline. Yeah, it's just a tagline. No, he's deadly serious. He goes, I completely struggle with procrastination. I mean, mind you, he pumps out 4 books a year. But what he realized was, he goes, there's no reason for my pencils to be sharpened again, like before he sits down to write. But he's got this little process. But one of the things he figured out, which was really interesting, was that when he's procrastinating, his brain's actually not just ready, and he's still trying to figure out the next little angle, right? And so it's procrastinating, but it's not really procrastinating, because there's just sometimes you do need to take a break, a step back, so your brain can process everything, and then you're free to go again. So yeah, there's someone who literally, he goes, I spent years trying not to procrastinate, and then one day I realized it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
And so I just recognize it as part of the process. Yeah. So I guess for the startups who are out there, who might be struggling, you know, at times struggling is just part of the process, I guess is another way of looking at it.
Yeah. Self-doubt, procrastination, time management. It's not the right time to start yet. No, it's like having a baby. There's never a right time. You just go for it. Like if you got enough money to pay for it, you just do it. Because it literally, like if you think you can start your business today, even if it's just coming up with some ideas of what a product or service will be, going out and talking to some people about, okay, would you buy this? And registering an ABN or something like that, even if it's just simple steps like that, you're one step closer to doing something. Because I see a lot of people on maternity leave and redundancy payments and long-term unemployed. They're probably my three biggest groups. And it is because they've suddenly got this time where they think, I literally have this window of time that I don't feel I'm going to have at another time. So I want to use it to try and start something. But actually that has its own challenges, because then you're like almost giving yourself a deadline of saying, I've got 3 to 6 months, and then if it doesn't work, what do I do? So I think actually any time you start is good. You just put time into it that you have available. And if it means doing like a weekly calendar where you track yourself over a week and go, okay, well, I spend half an hour on Facebook here. I could actually be promoting a business rather than looking at other people's stuff. Or I've got half an hour here that I watch or 3 hours here that I binge on something on, you know, iView or Netflix or Stan or whatever your provider of choice is. You know, and maybe I could cut that down to like an hour. I mean, don't cut out all the things you love to do. If escapism and fictional stories and whatever is your thing, then don't make anyone feel like you feel like you can't do that stuff. But absolutely, time management is a huge thing. Like if you want to do anything, it doesn't have to be a business. It could be cleaning out the house, doing the garden, renovating something, sewing up a suit. Who knows? Whatever your hobby is, like. Doesn't matter what you do, you got to find time for it, right? So it's just, you're really just choosing what your priority is for that spare time you have, and whether you want to do it channeling into something that might give you some future financial independence, or whether you channel into something you love and you're happy where you are. That's really the choice, because there's no real right time to do anything. You just kind of got to give it a go.
That's some absolutely fantastic advice. Firstly, thank you for that. All three panelists today have been absolutely outstanding. Andrea, are there any questions from the team? Or
I think everyone's just been like me, too busy writing notes to think about questions. It's actually been quite fantastic because they're so different today, aren't they, Pete? Like the level of where they're at is so different. You know, we've got a business that's all about the social media, the nuts and bolts, really getting into the nitty gritty, which I know Renee quite well, and that's Renee. Renee is very much about how do I squeeze the maximum amount out of what I've got in front of me. So absolutely tremendous. Ben is quite understated about IFAB, if the truth be known, Pete. So I'm just going to dob him in here because I can. When I met Ben, there was actually everything around IFAB was done on a voluntary basis. And it was the main organisation comprises of himself and a number of other Indigenous professionals, so those who are in the finance and the accounting sector. And you would think that with them being involved in corporate, that they would have got massive corporate sponsorship and tens of thousands of dollars behind them in donations. No, that's not what happened. They literally did it on the smell of an oily rag, literally pulled it together. That was all done from just blood, sweat and absolute tears. Their first inaugural event they held in December 2019 in Sydney was awesome. You know, they had over 100 people come along to a 2-day event. First time ever. Didn't know what the hell we were getting into. Didn't know what was going to happen. I know, right, Ronwyn? Like, big time. Pulled in speakers from around Australia. They got speakers in from NZ, and they had a speaker fly all the way from Canada. So, you know, Ben, you're so understated, like so underplayed it. So you know what I mean? Like these guys have got some incredible wealth and expertise. And I love what Ronwyn was saying actually, because we were all startups at one point or another. I constantly, like you, Pete, we keep starting new businesses. So we're constantly in the startup mode. Yeah, we're constantly doing the whole jumping on the treadmill, going for it. So definitely get where it is with a lot of startups. And I love the idea that, because I love sales, like Kerry was, she was private messaging me going, oh my God, she's talking about me, someone who hates sales. I go, but I love sales. And I do, because that's the only way you make money. You sell something, but it takes confidence to get there. So guys, do you have any questions? Because I want you all to unmic or unmute yourselves. Have you guys got any questions across to each other, or you're happy with how it's all gone? I'm getting, oh, Lynn. Hello, Lynn.
Hello. Ben, I was just going to ask you a question. Years ago, I worked with a lot of Indigenous school-based trainees, and some of those kids just were dying to start up their own business. But back then, there was nothing to refer them to. Is there an opportunity that you might be able to go and speak to the Year 12 cohorts, perhaps, especially because they've got their own Indigenous sections, that you can just sort of speak to those kids, and just to plant a seed and to say to them, look, when you graduate from Year 12, you have this option open to you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it'd be great as well to even just have some people who run Indigenous businesses or are in the space attend that as well. And yeah, it doesn't have to be anything too structured, but you're right, it's planting that seed and going, this is a tangible option. And you know, it's not forcing anyone to do business or anything, but it's just a language. Once you learn it, you can unlock some potential. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I think that's us.
Yes, so look, thanks once again to our expert panels for joining us on another incredibly successful Business Bytes. And and if anyone's interested, if you want to connect with Andrea and myself on bizmojo.com.au, we do run a mentoring and support program for small business, and you can kick off for $1 at the moment, thanks to COVID. So we invite anyone to try that as well. But Renee, Ben, and Ronwyn, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, guys.
It was absolutely awesome, and we look forward to catching up with everyone again next week on the next Business Bytes. Thank you.
See you guys. Thank you so much.